Hi everyone, welcome. Good morning still. Welcome to our talk on signs you've outgrown your LMS from Digits. So my name is Bradley Burgoyne. I'm the head of talent at Digits, which is a Surefire company. And before we get going, I've got to say I'm so pleased I got the Britney Spears headphone and not the handheld. This is like a 90s child ambition of mine fulfilled today. So let's talk a little bit about Digits. So who are Digits? Hopefully you've come across us before. But we are a digital learning provider. We have over 3 decades of experience in the industry, and our award-winning LMS, called Digits LMS, is utilized by many household names that you kind of see up here, and we may well reference some of those household names as we go through with various case studies in terms of how they've used the system. And as well as our learning management system, we also offer a bespoke content service to our customers as well, where we can build bespoke content based on your needs. Our agenda for the talk today is going to cover off some really key indicators, if you like, that you may have just outgrown your LMS, or you may need to do something slightly different. So we're very much going to cover these 5 key signs around engagement rates, unreliable data, limited configuration options, and you can kind of read the rest. And ultimately, give some guidance, give some best practice as to how we may start to overcome some of these signs and what that looks like and how we can plan moving forward. So hopefully we can cover those topics and provide some interesting insight as we go through today. So I guess the first key question then is your LMS fit for purpose? You know, and if the answer's no, or maybe, or I'm not sure, that's okay, because I still think there's going to be stuff that kind of comes out of this that really gets people thinking about how you're using your LMS and how we could be using it better. Some, I guess, the key questions to kind of answer yourself around assessing whether that is it an essential part of your business? Is it woven into the fabric of how you do things within your organization? And do all the key stakeholders understand that? Do they agree with that view? Are they aligned to how important the LMS is? Or is it just that thing that does compliance training and that's kind of it really? So it's all about that perception of what it is, and that's going to help fulfill that question of are you getting your return on investment? Is it fit for purpose? Some of these other key questions here, I guess it's about asking yourselves those questions to establish, is it still fit for purpose? And we're going to start covering off some of the 5 key signs and kind of areas to consider. So I guess the first thing is around low engagement. I've rolled out LMSs, I've introduced this LMS as a customer in a previous life, and engagement is one of those really, really challenging things, isn't it? It's how do we drive better engagement within our LMS? Low engagement is really hard, and how do we overcome that? So I guess some things to kind of consider around low engagement. So is there a learning culture? Have you established a learning culture within your organization? And I guess what do we mean about learning culture? Does it go beyond more than just compliance training? Or is your LMS just a tool to do the standard kind of health and safety, all the compliance piece, and that's it? We don't do any more than that. Because I guess that's always going to be a struggle if that's all it is. You know, it's just a place I go because I have to, and I get told once a year that I've got to go there and I've got to do some stuff. It's about understanding your data. So what is the data within the system telling you about engagement? Are you getting a really clear picture of just how engaged your learners are? Are you asking them? Are you having conversations with your learners around what are they getting out of the LMS and what do they want to see more of? What do they want to see less of? How does it help them? And really, all of that, how does that then feed into the piece around stakeholder engagement and management support? Because ultimately, you're never going to drive that engagement unless you've got that key stakeholders across the business promoting your LMS and extending the benefits of it. So let's have a little look at how we might start to look at improving and just some suggested best practice really. So how do we move beyond it being a compliance platform into more of an essential tool around career development? I think career development is absolutely key to driving engagement through LMS, because ultimately there has to be a really strong sense for the end user of what's in it for me, what am I going to get out of it, why should I give it some time, how's that going to benefit me as an individual? And career development is a really powerful tool to drive engagement within your LMS. So is your learning linked to your career maps? Is it linked to your learning pathways to enable people to grow and develop within your organization? Because if I start to see some tangible benefit as an end user, that I've done some learning, I've been on a program, and actually that's empowered me and given me the confidence to apply for that next role and really be considered for that next role, that's going to be a really powerful incentive for me to come back and want to do more. So how do we elevate it just beyond compliance into the realms of this is actually really helping me get on and get up in my career? So do employees really understand that? Do they understand what's in it for them? Are you communicating that on a regular basis? And have you built enough of a structure within your LMS that enables that to happen? Is it really easy to use, or is it complex? Because it has to be easy to navigate. And ultimately, how can we engage and reward people for completing activities within the platform? We're super fortunate with our platform that there's a real strong gamified element to it, whether it's rewards or points, but it's how are you using those rewards and points in a really meaningful way to drive engagement? So is it just that I get a badge in the platform and that's it? Or what does that badge really mean? Does it go beyond the platform? Do I get something physical as a recognition of completing that? So we come out of platform into a physical reality. In a previous life, we ran quite an interesting concept around this where we had to roll out Office 365 across our organization. And we did that in a way where we created a digital ninja program. So you could come and become a digital ninja and learn new skills and go and put those back into the business. And at every step of the way you built your competence, you upgraded your badge, if you like, or your belt, till you got to kind of the top level as a black belt ninja in Office 365. And once our users achieved black belt ninja status, we actually sent them a physical black belt that they could kind of wear or stick up on the shelf. And that's just a really fun way of kind of taking a really dry topic of we're going to roll Office 365 out across the organization, but how do we make that fun? How do we make that engaging for the user? And ultimately, what's in it for them? The second sign we're going to look at is around data. So data is a big part of the LMS. It's going to generate lots of data, but is that data meaningful? Is it reliable? So it's really about reflecting on, yes, it's generating lots of data, but what story am I trying to tell? What do I want that data to back up? So ultimately, we work in challenging organizations, which, everyone has a budget, everyone has something that they're working towards. So it's how can I use these measures to demonstrate really clear ROI on my LMS and the value that it's adding to my organization. Where we sit today, in my role as head of talent, yes, I look at learning and development, but I also look at talent acquisition and retention of colleagues as well. And an LMS can play a really leading role in that, in terms of how do we get people to stay with us for longer, and how do we retain them, upskill and reskill them for the roles that we need tomorrow. That's a really clear driver of ROI within the organization, because we know the cost that every time someone leaves, we know what that cost of re-recruitment is. We know the cost to the team when they have that empty chair sat there, the detrimental effect that has on the rest of the team. So how are we using LMS to really move those people through the organization, give them the skills they need, plug those gaps, which avoids that cost of losing them or ultimately having to go out and recruit that person from outside of the organization, which we know is going to cost more money. That's just one example of ROI, and it's about elevating it outside of just pure learning and actually what's the impact it's having on your business, and how does that align to your wider talent strategy of wanting to grow and develop your people within your organization. So how does it inform then those strategic decisions moving forward around where we invest, what development we invest in? I'm going to do a really interesting another take on this. So one of our customers, B&Q, they had a particular challenge around onboarding new starters. So actually we did some work with them, and we got to a point where we built a really nice induction journey that actually lots of their new employees who've been through that journey highly rated. They said it was a fantastic experience, really kind of set them up for success in onboarding. And an interesting part of this was actually 87% of those new starters completed the journey before they'd even joined. At a point where they're super excited, they got their new job, they're really motivated to kind of want to get on, learn about the company, learn about the organization. Now there's a big ROI piece here, because actually if 87% of them did it before starting, they're not then using time when they have started to do some of this stuff, you know? So that then increases speed to ramp, speed to competency, and we can get them productive quicker. So there's some really clear ROI measures, and this is just a way that, you know, B&Q looked at their data and then could generate a really good ROI case for using the system and how it's increased that speed to competency within their business. Another sign to look at, you know, how configurable is your system? What options do you have, or are you limited? So your brand, you know, you will each work for organizations that have a very distinctive brand. Does your LMS allow that brand to come through? Does it allow that LMS to feel really personalized rather than just an off-the-shelf solution? Does it feel really tailored and reflective of your organization? And we've got some great examples here of customers we've worked with. The next example I've got for you is Kia. You know, Kia are one of our customers, big, you know, multinational organization. And they did some great work with their LMS to make it feel very Kia, make it feel very unique and branded to them, and it works based on their learning strategy and what they want to achieve. But you know, other organizations, like we referenced B&Q already, their one looks completely different yet again, and is wholly aligned to what they're trying to drive as an organization. So how customizable is it? How customizable are these pages, the widgets, the badges, the journeys, the visual aspect of the platform? Does it align to your brand? Because if it aligns to your brand, it's going to feel more engaging for your users. You know, it's going to feel like it's just part of the ecosystem of all of the other systems they log into that's linked to your brand. So ultimately, it's asking yourself that question: is it customizable enough for your needs and what you're trying to achieve? And only truly you know the answer to that question. Sign number 4. So how integrated is your LMS with other tools and other platforms that you use as an organization? Integration and connectivity, we are seeing more and more being a key driver in the decisions why people are choosing one LMS over another or one product over another. There is so much out there now in terms of, you know, the tech space and the software that we use. It has to be able to work together. It has to be able to connect so we can pull that data out and really tell those stories. So some things I guess to consider with this is, the more integrated it is with things like your HR system, maybe your performance management system, if that's a separate piece, it enables you to then look at all of those data points across all of those various systems, of which LMS is a key part of that, to make those decisions around supporting strategically how you move forward as an organization. Where are your pain points? Where are your pinch points? And is LMS doing what it needs to do to address those? Or is the data telling you something different? So connectivity is absolutely key, and connecting into that tech stack that you have so you can get that overall view and it's not just data in isolation sat within the LMS. And some key essential integrations, I've already kind of touched on some, but things like your HR system, things like your CRM system. Some of you may be using Power BI as an organization to get some really cool data insights into your business. Does your LMS connect into that? Does the data flow freely between those platforms to really give you those powerful insights in terms of how are people using it, but also what difference is it making to either their performance, their career, or against key metrics in the organization that your organization maybe drives. Some of them may be operational KPIs, but if I do an activity here, it should integrate to tell me what the net effect is on this system over here where we measure something different. So integration and connectivity is absolutely key to this and fundamental. And step number 5, I guess this is a real key area of focus right here at this moment in time. Is it helping you tackle your skills gap? You know, this is something that I wrestle with. Many other, you know, people in similar positions to me will be wrestling with on a daily, weekly basis. You know, the talent market is hard. You know, we all know this. I'm sure many of you have got vacancies within your organization. You're looking to recruit people in, and they're not there. They don't exist, or they do exist, but it's costing you an absolute fortune to maybe go and get them and try and acquire that skill in your business. We know that the hiring market is really, really tough at the moment, and is your LMS helping you in that market? So some things to consider, you can see some key stats up here. I think the CIPD one at the bottom is particularly kind of worrying for most of us. Around 20% of workers are considering leaving their current role within the next 12 months. Much of that is driven around career progression, wanting more, wanting something different. And ultimately, LMS is a key tool to satisfy that need so they don't have to leave and go somewhere else. Skills is a big, big part now of LMS, and your platform needs to enable you to be able to identify what those skills gaps are across your organization. Once we identify those skill gaps, it needs to surface to the user what is the content, what is the program, what is the thing that's available to help me plug that skills gap. And as a manager, I want to have visibility of that. I want to know what the gaps are within my team and what the development offering is that's available to address that gap. As an L&D manager, I want to know that because I want to know what the gaps are, because that's going to form my L&D strategy for the next 12, 18, 24 months. I need to make sure that I can cater for that. So you absolutely need a tool that can identify what the skill set is across your organization versus where you want it to be. Now, when organizations do this really successfully, it also highlights that you might have some hidden talent across your business. There are people already working for you that have that particular skill, but because we haven't got something that enables that to come out, we don't know that, and the risk is we miss it, and they could fill an important gap that we might have in the organization. So skills analysis, I can't emphasize it enough. Every conversation we have on the stand, we was at an event here 6 months ago, everyone was talking about skills. How is the platform going to measure skill, identify gap? And then more importantly, how does it link into a personal development program for that user, for that colleague in the business? And it has to be personal, right? Because every individual is going to have different gaps. They're going to have different needs. Now, there's a lot of work that has to go into instilling something like this in your organization. We have to have a really clear, comprehensive competency framework and job profile for every single role in the organization, where we've clearly identified what the skills, knowledge, and behaviors are that are required for that given role. Once we've got that, we can plug that into our LMS and ask users to go through and assess themselves versus that skill gap for either the role they have today or maybe the role they want to have tomorrow. This is where I am now, but that's where I want to be. Where's my gap? What do I need in order to fulfill that gap? Managers, it's so important managers have the opportunity to feedback, to loop into this process. You might see that your gaps are here, but as a manager, I see that your gaps are here. And peers as well. Peers might have a view on it. They may say, I work with you every day, and actually I observe that there's a bit of a gap here as well. So how do we get all of that feedback in using our LMS to then come out with a really tailored program of learning that individual can go on? And more importantly, as an L&D team, how do I then extract all of that data to get the view of the whole organization and start to understand where some of our key skill gaps are and offer something to fill those gaps moving forward? This is so important at the moment because the talent market is just so tight. We can't always rely on going externally to fill in those gaps. We've got to look within first, and we've got to be prepared and willing to invest in our talent. Another interesting piece around this, we recently did some analysis ourselves internally in terms of our turnover. And there's a generational piece here as well. We look at some of the Gen Zs that we're starting to get into our organization. They thrive in this environment of career development. They're hungry for those development opportunities. And if you're not going to give it to them, they will just go. They will just go somewhere else. It gives you that constant headache of having to rehire those really critical roles. So what are we doing to retain them? And skills and LMS play such a fundamental, important role in that. So I guess just to kind of recap and talk about what are those benefits to you as an organization. Ultimately, LMS, it's about that investment in your people. It's not just about compliance training. It's about how we're investing in a tool that enables us to upskill, reskill, and redeploy people within the organization. And what's in it for them? That career development opportunity and that chance to grow, expand my knowledge, and move into other roles within the business. You know, and a good LMS will absolutely enable your business to pull out engaging, relevant learning at the right time. You know, the speaker that was here before, I was still over here, I was watching, those guys were doing some amazing stuff with content, but the LMS is kind of the glue that then knits that together and helps people access that in a really meaningful way that's meaningful to them. You know, does it enable you to report on those tangible activities that enable you to plan and inform any next steps around your learning strategy? And ultimately, does it plug into the organization's wider strategy around what they're trying to drive? Can we automate more of the processes? You know, a good LMS shouldn't be so labor intensive for you guys. A lot of this, you know, the guy was talking before about workflows and the ability to set up workflows that I can just copy, paste, drop into something else. It should just make life easier, and not just for you, but for your end user as well, you know, making their life easier to be able to access all of the great stuff that you do. Does it highlight those key areas and those development areas to inform your talent retention strategy and ultimately your succession planning strategies? You know, what does your talent bench look like? And a good LMS should be feeding that talent bench with really highly skilled individuals that are ready to make that move into the role as and when it comes available. A good LMS will give you really easable reporting on all of this and that connectivity that if you're using tools like Power BI to be able to go out and take that reporting up to another level by extracting the data out of LMS. And ultimately, you know, does it provide you with the ability to future-proof the workforce and really weather some of those challenges that we've got going on currently around that war on talent and just how difficult it is to find that talent out there in the marketplace? And I guess, you know, I would say this, you know, we're a provider, but even if it wasn't Digits you were working with, I think having that relationship with your provider is absolutely key. You know, I found this so important when I was implementing LMS, having that trusted partner that you can jump on a call with or pop an email to and just say, look, I'm really trying to wrestle with this, but I need your help with that because I don't know what, you know, there's elements where you don't know what you're doing and you just need that little bit of a guide of someone to go, look, we work with other organizations on similar challenges, leverage those relationships, and you should have a really healthy relationship with your provider, and they should absolutely be aligned to your objectives and your strategies that you're trying to implement as well, and be that guide to help you through the process. So as we said, these really are those five key indicators to look out for to answer that question of, you know, is it fulfilling its purpose, or have you outgrown it and is it time to start thinking about something else? Or is it that you've got that functionality within your LMS and you just need to revisit and have that conversation with your provider, because at the moment you're unaware of how to plug some of those gaps, but it's there, we just don't know how to get there because we don't have the skill level to kind of do that, and that's where your provider should be coming in to really offer you that support. And ultimately, it's all about, is it offering you value? Is it doing what you need it to do based on your objectives and the ROI that your business expect for the investment that they've made within your LMS? That's us wrapped up, guys. There is 5 minutes for a Q&A. If anyone has, I don't know how I'm going to facilitate this, by the way, because I don't have a microphone, so you might just have to shout.
In terms of the platform, what HR providers does it integrate with?
So really good question. Anything you want it to integrate with is the answer to that question. There is so much through an API connector that we can get out of our system into a HR system. I think you'd struggle to find a HR system, for example, that we don't integrate, or anyone else, because it's all just done through a general open API into other organizations' system. If you want to know more, we do have some people over here that can answer that on a much more technical level than me, because I get distracted by the colourful L&D side of things. But yeah, absolutely ask that question. We've yet to come across anyone who's having difficulties with integrating our LMS and the data into another one of their platforms. Yeah?
Can it be multi-tenanted to provide different either business units or organizations?
Yes, so we have quite a few multinational customers where we have that multi-tenancy, and they set their pages up accordingly. So they might be that if I'm in one market, I see one thing. If I'm in one market, I see another thing. We cater for different languages, different time zones, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Yes, multi-tenancy is absolutely a thing that we can offer. And Joff and Andrew are over. It's so handy having them like next door. If you want, honestly guys, if you want to spend some time, if you're here for the day, spend some time talking to the team, because those guys work with customers on a daily basis and they can probably give you some really tangible examples of where we've done that. And we've got a demo system there as well where they may even be able to say, right, this is what that would look like and this is how that can happen. Cool. Any other questions? Oh, wow, cool.
So I've just moved from an organisation of over 40,000
Yep.
to one of 500.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that makes a difference in terms of the LMS we need?
I think it does, because you're going to have different things that you need at 500 employees to what you need at 40,000, i.e. I'm guessing 40,000 was multi-tenanted, multi-territory, or, yeah, exactly, versus 500 is probably a bit more localized. I would say yes, however, I think the core principles are still the same. You know, like, how do I create something that's engaging? How do I do the skills piece? Because skills is just as important for 500 as 40,000. If not more so, because if I lose one person from 500, that's probably going to have a much more significant impact than one from 40,000. So I would say the only thing it probably changes is the scale of the provider that you're looking at, because they need to have the infrastructure to cope with 40,000 users, whereas at 500, you may be able to broaden the net of the number of providers that you can look at to cater for 500 versus 40,000. So you may find, if anything, you've just got a bigger selection to go from, which is a good thing. It's a good and a bad. It's like a headache thing as well. I'm sure the guys will be more than happy to look after your 500 if you want to have a chat with them as well. Any other questions? I think we've still got a couple of minutes. No? Cool. Well, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the show. I don't know about all of you, I've got massive regrets about sticking this on today, but it's quite new, and I'm scared the fluff thing's going to happen if I take it off. So enjoy the rest of the show, and if you do want to know more about Digits, we are just here. Feel free to drop in for a conversation. We'll happily give you some more information. Cool. Thank you.